All right, thank you everyone so much for being here. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn. We have a wonderful group of folks talking to you today about innovation hubs and co-working creative solutions for our rural economies. So today we have as our moderator, Andrew Van Leuven, who's a professor in the Community Development and Applied Economics Department here at UVM, and Chris Maggiolo, who's a deputy director at Black River Innovation Campus in Springfield. And he's also a partner of the Leahy Institute in our co-working consortium pilot that is running this year. Lucia Campriello is CEO at Hula, and she's another partner in our co-working consortium, and I'm so excited to have them here to talk to you today. Andrew, with that, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. First time ever doing something like this since I got to UVM. You what?
Good.
Okay. All right, testing? Okay. All right, so my name is Andrew. Let's see. I'm trying to remember what it was on these slides. Not a great angle. So I am not a subject matter expert on rural co-working spaces, so I'm not going to talk about that. Our two esteemed panelists are going to be kind of giving you the information you came here to get on that. I am going to shoehorn a little bit into some of my research before I introduce the topic. Anyone ever heard of the idea of a third place? Okay, so I've got some research on third places. Some of you familiar with CORI, Center on Rural Innovation, might know my colleague, co-author Amanda Weinstein. We're working on a paper that I'll talk about. Okay, so this is our Mentimeter question. Oh wait, how do we do this? I think the Mentimeter was the next thing. I'm going to go roll with the punches until we get it. So I'm going to talk about, oh no, we're ready. Okay, sorry. I have a question for you guys to answer about third places before I even define them. So, okay, so when you think of third places, and those are informal settings away from work and home, what comes to mind? Are we able to just...
You can go with the code on menti.com, multitasking while you're eating if you want.
I'm going to go ahead and kind of just talk a little bit while we're waiting. Can I, let's see, I'll give everybody a chance. So third places are obviously, according to this question here, they're this idea of you got your home, that's where you live and sleep and interact with your family or whoever you live with, right? And then you got your workplace, that's where you're going to spend time earning a living, right? But then what do you do with the rest of your time, right? And so we've got lots of kind of, ideas about what third places are. They're the coffee houses that people were meeting during the Enlightenment, or the, the Sons of Liberty and Daughters of the Revolution, thinking about how to, declare our independence, 250 years ago, right? Or they're like Moe's Tavern from The Simpsons, right? There are these places where we spend time. And the research that we're working on, and I've got a couple different things, didn't really start actually with third places as like the thing we were looking at. We were just thinking about anchors, right? In the urban planning literature, anchors, these anchor institutions, they're like hospitals, universities, places that are not gonna like up and leave just because the market's tough, right? But rural places typically don't have those anchors. So I had this project that I was doing when I was a professor at Oklahoma State University in Extension, and I asked a lot of the county extension agents. There's 77 different counties, and I wanted to get somebody who's embedded in a rural county all over this state. What kind of places anchor your town? Okay, so we've got some results, right? Bars, restaurants, cafes, parks, gyms, and then what's this? Libraries, community centers, right? This is kind of right in line with what our research found, and I'll get to that in just a sec, very briefly. Okay. Uh-oh. Can we go back to the slides? All right. First time with this technology. I liked it. Okay. So I'm not going to read these quotes, right? But these are, let's see, yeah. So these quotes that I got back from people, yeah, there was some people who said, our town does have a hospital or a university that anchors our economy. But a lot of folks came back with with comments like the ones that you could see above me, where, this is a restaurant, right? It's not someplace that is prohibited from leaving due to their, 501c3 mission statement. They could leave and they might die, right? Because the market can be brutal. But they've been here for a long time and they provide this awesome social space, right? And I love this one that you can kind of just skim through. It's this idea of it's a on Friday night it's a reunion for people after a football game or whatever, right? And I know Vermont, you guys are more into hockey and stuff, but Oklahoma, we loved our football. So I'm not going to read all this stuff. This is kind of just summarizing some of the ideas about third places, which I think is going to transition really well into our conversation about co-working, right? But we need places in rural communities, especially, that provide a location. And I know co-working as a third place is kind of fraught because it's one of the two places is work, right? So maybe it might provide kind of maybe a 2.5 place or something like that. But in general, I think it stands that we do need these places in rural communities that serve as sort of anchors, not through mission, not through the the function of being tied forever, right? But just because they want to be there, they want to the people who purveyors of the anchor institution, like Hula, right? I've met some really great folks who run co-working spaces and other kinds of They provide a community, right? And also they're providing people who are in our communities, not just during the work time, but there's people who can come in and start working, 5 through 10 p.m., right? When most of our rural communities can be dead, right? And then this last bullet point, I just want to say, Amanda and I have started working on some research linking the presence of third places in rural areas to higher home values, which home values is not always our favorite metric of economic vitality, because sometimes we hate being priced out, right? But in general, there's sort of this correlation with the economy picking up whenever there's a higher concentration of bars, cafes, restaurants, and whatnot. So I'm gonna stop talking about my research. I want you guys to kind of think about third places. Again, work is one of the 2 first places, but in co-working spaces, but I want you to kind of just think about the role of third places and especially of co-working spaces as generators of social capital, places where communities are not just making the pocketbook or the balance sheet go up, but also kind of creating the social wealth, the complexity of social ties, both within, it's called like bonding social capital, everyone in the community being close with each other. But then there's also bridging social capital, where I don't know you, but I know somebody who knows you, so then we kind of have that tie, right? And so I'm going to turn over the time over to, I think, our other 2 guest speakers who've already, we've already had the introduction, sorry, actually, that's our first question. Sorry, I'm a little flustered here. So introduce yourselves and tell us about your work as a co-working space, and we'll start with Chris. Sorry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Maggiolo. I'm the Deputy Director at the Black River Innovation Campus, located in Springfield, Vermont. BRIC, as we call ourselves, was founded in 2018. It was a collaborative grant with the Economic Development Administration, with the kind of Springfield Regional Development Corporation and the aforementioned Center on Rural Innovation leading the charge. We received that award, which was charged with developing an innovation hub and tech-based economic development engine in rural Vermont, based in Springfield. Springfield's history was one of manufacturing. It was the global epicenter of gear shaping, so not only making gears, but really making the machines that made the gears themselves. Precision Valley ran from Windsor, North Windsor, all the way down into Hartford, Connecticut, and Springfield was really at the heart of that. In the 60s, 70s, that industry started to pull out. The economy really suffered because of that. A lot of brain drain, a lot of opioid crises in the area, really resulted in the town suffering. So this new project, the Black River Innovation Campus, was born as a way to see if we could reinvigorate the economy in that region through emerging technology. Our initial grant was charged with starting a startup incubator and accelerator built around tech-based companies. And after a brief COVID delay, we started that, embarked upon it in January of 2021. So we launched Actuator, play on words, kind of the idea of potential energy being kind of converted into kinetic energy in something, a different form. And we started working with startups. We started working with any startups that were using technology, really, as we were trying to get a sense of who was in the region and what they were doing. We worked with folks being solopreneurs in the early childcare industry, doing tech or ed tech, And in that same cohort had postdocs out of Dartmouth building quantum computing engines. So really a broad focus of technology in southern Vermont. We continued operating on that grant. We received follow-on funding from the EDA in 2022 through the Build to Scale Venture Challenge to continue scaling that program. So we scaled it geographically. We seeded the Cultivator Innovation Hub in Randolph and are working with them, providing our playbook and some resources to help seed the innovation economy in the northern part of the East Central Vermont region. We also scaled across subject matter. We offered a partnership with Norwich University in advanced computing. We worked with the Manufacturing Collaborative at Vermont State University in Randolph around advanced manufacturing. And we started looking at these industry clusters in our regions. So that's kind of where we are today, still operating in this build to scale grant period. Actuator itself, since January of 2021, we've worked with 75 companies. Together, they've raised about $17 million. We've conducted countless, 500 plus now, mentorship sessions, coaching sessions with these companies, and we run our program 3 times a year. So we have 3 cohort, that's January, September, and April, that take companies through about 8-10 weeks of really kind of broad level scaffolding. So how do you set up your company? How do you get connected in this ecosystem that really works differently than a traditional ecosystem? While we were started off as very kind of Springfield focused, we've also grown to include founders from Newport and the northern border of Vermont, all the way down into Boston and New York City, and founders that are considering setting up their businesses in Vermont, citing the lifestyle or the quality of life, which I know is a big metric in your research and Amanda's research. And how do we kind of welcome those folks in and help them navigate this unique entrepreneurial ecosystem. But you'll notice that not all of these activities are necessarily entrepreneurial focused. We also embarked upon K through 12 STEAM education and workforce development resources. So helping startups is one thing, but if they don't have a talent pool or a future talent pool, what are they going to do? So we get out into schools, we work with educators throughout the state, creating camps and supporting their professional development. We're launching 120 seats, 10 camps this summer around intro to robotics, aeronautical engineering, designing for VR, building video games, even to theater. And we do it all in this building for the most part. It's currently under renovation, so we're actually out of the building. But we operate out of the historic high school building in Springfield, the Park Street School, which is a 90,000 square foot historic registry school building, complete with all the trappings of a building that was built in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We received about $7 million of funding to start bringing this back up to code. But within this space, we have a multimedia recording studio, we have 3D printing equipment, a kind of an entry-level laser cutter that we can use for both STEAM education programming as well as early stage prototyping with founders. We have a small co-working space that offers FlexDesk co-working, so just drop-in co-working, a place for folks to work outside of their office or outside of their home. And that space attracts individuals from within about a 40-minute radius of Springfield. So all of our programming, while we have this physical space, was built to be hybrid enabled. So we do use the rest of Springfield as well as kind of our campus, especially in this period of renovation, where we do work at the coffee shops, we do work at the chamber, we host our entrepreneurship capstone at the local historic inn, the Hartness House. So we really make the full use of not just our own third space, but third spaces throughout the Springfield community as a way to kind of tie together the various partnerships of the town itself. I'm going to leave us there for a moment. I am charged as well, I believe, with explaining a little bit about our co-working coalition, which is a group of 4 co-working spaces throughout Vermont. Ourselves, the Hub Co-works in Rutland, Due North in Lyndonville, and of course, Hula here in Burlington. And I think this unique coalition is particularly interesting as we all have kind of different beginnings, different ties. We're a 501c3. The Rutland The hub co-work space in Rutland is closely tied to their regional economic development engine, CEDAR. Due North Coworking has ties to Vermont State University. And of course, Hula, we'll hear about in just a second. There you go.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you so much. It's really nice to be here. And Andrew, it's really nice to spend a little bit of time with you again. It was so fun to visit your class this past March and look forward to finding more opportunities to collaborate. So thank you. You did refer to me as an expert, which I would offer I am not. I'm actually quite new to this industry, but I have a huge passion for community building, which is why I think I'm in the role that I'm in, and really excited about that. So before I launch, I know we're a statewide audience today, but could I just see a show of hands of folks who have not ever been to Hula? Awesome. Well, those of you who have been and never have been, you are all invited anytime. My contact information will flash at the end of this, I'm sure, and I'd happily hear from you and connect you with a tour or host you myself. So we'd love to see you down there. So my name is Lucia Campriello, and I'm the team lead at Hula, where we're on a mission to elevate Vermont entrepreneurs and create community connections, which we get to do from a pretty incredible 14-acre co-working campus, innovation hub, and venture ecosystem, right down on the lake in Burlington's South End Innovation District. I like to say, because I have seen it happen in my short time as team lead over the past year, that Hula inspires dreamers to become doers. Members join our community as individuals. They launch their companies from Hula. They grow their teams from Hula. They source talent at Hula. Eventually, for some, success is moving on from Hula, which is awesome. It creates more space for the next wave of innovators to come hang out with us and make some magic. We are home to about 1,200 individual members who work from this space every year. That includes employees of about 100 companies that are headquartered at Hula. We also host 3,400 visitors from across the state and around the country each year, which is great fun. And as well as tens of thousands of guests who move through a fairly robust event program. And finally, we're also home to an in-house venture fund, which is invested in over 24 Vermont-based companies, contributing to economic development here in the state. We get to partner with lots of wonderful organizations, including business associations and community-based organizations, higher education institutions, philanthropic organizations, including the Leahy Institute, which we're so honored to be a part of. And gosh, I think I might leave it with maybe how proud I am to be a part of the adventure of Hula, and what an honor it is to steward the vision of our founders, which was to develop or foster innovation in sustainably built spaces and welcome participation. We are just about 4 years, or just over 4 years old now, and I think we've done a pretty good job at that vision so far, and I look forward to expanding it and growing it together with our consortium and with all of you. I don't think I need to read any of the slides. Hopefully you took that in. And maybe there's another one with, yes, I do want to click through. That is a QR code to our e-newsletter, which is one of the ways that you can stay connected to us, or just stop by any old time.
All right, I guess it falls to me as the moderator to get back on. I only have 2 more questions, so I think I actually really like that. We just have 2 more that we can chew on for the rest of the time together. So we'll go back to Chris. The question is, how can co-working spaces and incubators support our rural economy? But I want to preface it, because that's what we're here for, right? No, I'm just kidding. I want to preface it by letting you kind of give it a answer in just however you want to frame like the rural economy. Because my research with Amanda, we were looking at our housing, right? But there's a ton of ways you can like put, Y into the equation, whatever the outcome variable is, to measure the economy. So I want to just kind of preface that with saying you don't have to talk about job creation or tax growth. You could talk about any kind of measure of economic growth that is valuable, because rural areas don't all grow the same way. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. I guess often, when we think about impact in our work, in our grant metrics, in communicating with some of our stakeholders, it's largely around that entrepreneurship piece of deal flow, of jobs created, money raised by companies. And so, one of the things that we try to do within this ecosystem and connecting all these spaces is really act as kind of a switchboard. We know when folks enter into the Vermont entrepreneurial ecosystem that they often don't know where to start. And so actuators really become a pivot point for that. Well, they'll come in, we'll introduce them to subject matter experts from around the state and beyond. Oftentimes we find folks from outside of Vermont that still have connections to the state. We introduce them as mentors, we introduce them as collaborators, and then after they're done with our program, we continue to work with them, but we also hand them off to a next step. We don't have all the resources ourselves. While we have a small fund papered, it's not really anything beyond that. So being able to introduce them to the Green Mountain Accelerator Fund or VSET or Hula, Launch VT, or even one of these other accelerator programs that have a fund attached, such as the generator program in Rutland, is a viable next step. And so we really work to start breaking down the silos that often exist in the state and in rural areas in general by reaching across those boundaries and helping kind of steward the economic process for companies.
Very good. Same question, Lucia, to you. I'll also just say Burlington is not rural, right? You guys are located in an urban area, but coming from places I've lived in, Houston, Texas, or Philadelphia, Vermont, the whole state's rural, right? So you can, I don't know how much Hula interacts with entrepreneurs and how many members might live in a rural area. Honestly, it doesn't matter that much about the distinction. I just kind of want to hear what your answer to the question is about.
Yeah, and I think I'll take it back to community building in this and build a little bit on what Chris talked about. I think one of my favorite things about being at Hula, and I've had the pleasure of being at Hula in a formal role with the organization, but also in my previous work as a member, and I still feel the same way when I walk into the space, and that is that anything is possible. I feel really empowered. I feel certain that I'm going to meet some fascinating people. And I generally just feel really good about the work that I'm doing. And I feel whether that work is actual work or networking or making connections or meeting new people or whatever that is. And so I think, I don't know, when I think about the aspect of community building and the resource sharing that we all have the capacity to do, which I know is a large part of our focus as part of the Leahy Consortium, I think about our friends at VSET who are funded and here intentionally to support entrepreneurs across the state and how we can partner and leverage that resource in them, because I think ultimately we're all after the same thing, right? Which is equipping entrepreneurs with the resources they need to be successful at pursuing their dreams, at developing their business, at scaling their business, at accessing the resources that they can access both here in the state and more broadly. And so, I think a lot about, similarly, I think a lot about sort of who are the mentors, who are the connectors, who are the advisors, who are the folks who've done it before and have experienced success and have some wisdom to impart. And how do the spaces that we all host welcome everyone and create opportunity for that connection. I really think of it as like, gosh, how lucky am I? I get to just invite people over to my house every day. And it's not my house, by the way, but just to use the expression, and see what happens, right? And there's something very playful about that as well. There's also a lot of serious work happening there, right? And stakes are high. For entrepreneurs and startups too. So I don't want to mitigate sort of the seriousness of it, but it really is a heck of a lot of fun, which is great.
All right, so we have one more question before we open it up to Q&A, and this one is right in my wheelhouse. And can you speak about how co-working space can contribute to placemaking and some of the benefits of building people together? And I love this question because it distinguishes between placemaking and the rural economy. I think there's definitely not a necessary, you don't have to separate, and there are lots of instances where placemaking can be a contributor to the economy. But there's times where you're not necessarily trying to build, up the tax base or the jobs. You're just trying to make the people who live in a place happy to live there. And so I think this is a good maybe opportunity for us to kind of think about how co-working spaces can kind of feed into the community and how the community can feed into the co-working spaces. And whether you are at a coffee shop and you're kind of just injecting some lunchtime dollars into a business owner's business, or whether you're just part of the community and visible, right? So I guess we'll start with Lucia this time. how do you guys think about, and you just mentioned community building, but kind of just, placemaking and making wherever you are in Vermont kind of feel like somewhere rather than in anywhere?
So that makes me think about one of the challenges that some of us face, and I can only speak for our space, but we're a pretty big facility, right? So we can accommodate a lot of people. And that brings with it a challenge when you're talking about community building. I think a lot about the balance of curation and of spontaneity and of inclusion and equity and access. And so I'm constantly thinking about how are we welcoming participation authentically? How are we creating partnerships that are mutually beneficial and meaningful for the broader community as well as for Hula members? And I think with that comes a lot of listening and the need to be reflective and constantly in touch and in communication with your membership and with the broader community. And so there's a lot of, coming from the question, I don't know if anyone else was next door with Abby, so now I'm going to say something about research and survey work, and it's wildly inappropriate given where I just came from, but it's really fun to interact with the community on an ongoing basis to constantly pulse check and source new ideas, and feedback loop is so important, and we've had great fun in this first year incorporating a lot of feedback from members, and are about to do some more of that work when it comes to programming, so that we're making sure that we are creating an environment in which the folks who have come to use that environment can be successful. And that's both within a co-working program for our entrepreneurs who are there and our small business owners who are there, as well as for community organizations who use the space for events. So making sure that the work that's happening in the space is meaningful and on mission, and that it's always informed by the people we're serving.
Chris?
BRIC's mission is to activate thriving communities through STEAM education, startup incubation and acceleration, and collaborative initiatives. And so this idea of activating our local communities, not just Springfield, but through our programming in various locations, is very central to who we are. Our vision statement is what we like to call our Imagine statement. So you might have seen me flip through it as I was handing it to Lucia, but Imagine Vermont is kind of what we use to kind of guide our decision-making as a small team. And that's Imagine a Vermont where our rural communities are supported by innovative systems and emerging technologies, where individuals have the opportunity to engage with these either as an entrepreneur or as a student or as a job seeker to achieve the best version of the lives that they want to lead. It's built, this idea is really built into Actuator's core programming as well. Caitlin Christiana, our Director of Community and Culture, leads our lifestyle programming, which underlies Actuator. So throughout the entire process of our programming, Caitlin's checking in with founders and saying, all right, these are some of the activities that are happening in Springfield and Randolph. Here's the Garlic Festival that's happening down in southern Vermont. Here's a strawberry festival. It's apple picking season. Like, do you know where the apple orchards are and what they offer? And so we really try to kind of embody what makes Vermont unique as part of our entrepreneurial programming. And then on the STEAM side, it's the same. Springfield had that really rich history, has that really rich history of being an innovation hub. And a lot of our population still, that's still a very important part of who they are. Students now don't necessarily have the ability to interact with that same intellectual capital that used to reside in Springfield in the early 1900s through the 1950s, 60s. But we hope through the STEAM programming that we can connect students and teachers to the history of Springfield while still looking forward into making the town a more culturally rich place. Perhaps not the best word, because I think Springfield is rich culturally, but how do we use that history to inform the work that we're doing now and carrying us into the future? Yeah, and we tie that into everything. We tie it into the coffee shops, into the Hartness House Inn. We bring in the Telescope Making Society to work with students, to work with our founders. And so, I think really working to working with other organizations in town to have kind of an idea of what your identity is as a community. And then the workshop in this room previously was all about building intentional partnerships. I think having an idea of what the place is and then striving to move that together is an important part of the co-working ethos.
Very good. Well, I could keep going with more and more questions, but I'm going to turn the time over to the audience. We've got about 11 minutes, no, 16 minutes till 1:45. So any questions, I'll kind of just be the pointer at her. And yeah, just try to keep it, even though I'm going long here, try to keep it to a question, not too long of a comment. But yeah, who wants to start us off?
Where's Kelly Devine?
How was lunch? Lunch was pretty awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I can start.
Yes.
Hi, Johanna from Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility. I have a strong background in rural economic development, and one thing that I'm always curious about, especially here in Vermont, is how co-working spaces can advocate for broader broadband development in our state and create access for rural community members to thrive in that way. I'm loud enough, I think.
I think it's for our virtual audience.
So I'm just curious, how are you all engaging in the changes that we're seeing with broadband in Vermont? And what do you all see as your role, especially as co-working spaces, for providing crucial infrastructure in rural communities?
BRIC was made possible by a strong contribution from the Vermont Telephone Company. No, seriously though, VTEL is a very important part of what we do. They provide 4 10 gigabit capacity drops to the old Park Street School building. And it has really become a community resource. When COVID hit, we also received one of the state-sponsored hotspots for public use. And for a while, we were just offering it out the back of our parking lot for anybody who wanted to park or needed to park and receive Wi-Fi access. Now we work with a variety of communities, individuals. We have a fairly open door policy, even if you're not a co-working member. If you reach out and say, hey, I just need a place to land, we'll let you in and we'll facilitate work. We also loan out laptops to individuals that are participating in workforce development programming or tech skilling programs that we're involved with. A lot of times those individuals might not have broadband at their homes, so we do then offer them workspace. On the STEAM side, when we offer our summer camp programs, we also have traditionally offered co-working seats to parents because sometimes they're traveling an hour and they need to get work done. Broadband it's so complicated. I don't know that we as an organization, it's not really quite in our mission to advocate for broadband placement broadly. But we do understand it as a critical component of infrastructure and work, and where we're capable of doing that in our space, we try to make those resources available.
Johanna, I love that question, and I'm so grateful for our partnership with VBSR and for your work leading really important advocacy efforts, and so we're really happy to be a part of those efforts and to lend our voice and champion those efforts. So all that to say, we haven't done anything specifically to advocate for broadband by ourselves, and I love the idea. And also love to hop on the work of others and be a voice within that conversation. 2 other areas that Hula's been very active in over the past handful of years from a policy perspective are on the issue of childcare and on housing. And so several years ago, prior to my leadership, the organization signed on to Vermont's childcare campaign, both because of the leadership's acknowledgement and recognition of the relationship between childcare and economic development, and also because our members cite childcare and housing as 2 of the most significant barriers to their success as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, as Vermonters. Full stop. Those are the 2. And so more recently, we were fairly active this past legislative session to advocate for housing, both because of a real estate development project just down the street, also a parcel of which is also owned by our owner and founder of Hula, but that project is in partnership with the City of Burlington and also Champlain College, and so as a coalition with many, many other Vermonters, and in fact, I'm sure there's a conversation here that I'm really flattered you all came to this, because there's also a really interesting conversation about housing just down the hall that you could learn a lot more about, but obviously really big efforts that happened this past legislative session. And it's exciting to think about other areas that we might participate in from an advocacy perspective, also informed by our members' experiences.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, let's get you a microphone for our virtual audience.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Burke. I work with Acorn, and we have an Acorn Food Hub in Middlebury. So, Andrew, I loved your research around the multiplier effect of food hubs. And before we had the Food Hub, we didn't have an office space, and I often co-worked out of the VSET space when they had one in Middlebury. And I know a lot of nonprofits in the Middlebury, in the Champlain Valley area that don't have offices and would love a co-working space for nonprofits. We don't have very much money, so we can't afford Hula, even though it's gorgeous, and it's too far for us anyway. But I'm wondering, is there a movement to have some sort of co-working for nonprofits, considering Vermont has the most nonprofits per capita than any state in the country? And we need them. I mean, we know we need them. Thanks.
Want to take this one first?
Sure. Yes, so there is actually a conversation happening now in Montpelier to develop a shared workspace for business associations, most of which are all nonprofits, and so I don't know to the extent to which that collection might expand beyond associations, but you're not the only one with this interest, and there are some folks working on it in the center of the state also to ensure that those organizations that spend a lot of time in Montpelier have easy access for some of those exact reasons that you mentioned. Otherwise, we're really proud to collaborate with a handful of nonprofit organizations to sponsor their access, particularly those doing mission-aligned work, so that we can create points of access where it might not otherwise be possible. So look forward to more of that work as we continue to grow.
As a small, scrappy nonprofit, I agree with you. And we have given plenty of seats to our local nonprofit communities. I'm not sure that there's a specific movement to this type of work, but it is work that is being done throughout the country where you see, sometimes it's a co-working space that's attached to a town, where they might have town offices co-located with the Chamber of Commerce, co-located with other services, then offering a co-working space. We see it as an opportunity to invoke what we, creative collisions. The idea that, there might be a small nonprofit team with certain resources, and then another, or ourselves, where having just that center mass of activity really allows for opportunities, for partnerships, for just advancing the collective mission of making life a little bit better. And, I'm not sure, I'm not even sure if there is a co-working space in Middlebury, is there? No. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was one in the mill and that's one too. So.
They come and go. They're not really great at making revenue. Yeah, we'll talk, because we just put out a survey for a food hub. But I think it's incredibly important to share resources amongst small nonprofits. And so, for any aspiring co-working facilities in the room, look towards that, because a lot of these nonprofit leaders have real skills to bring for other components of community development or entrepreneurship. And I think that's something that's often overlooked.
Yes, Claire. While the microphone's coming, I just wanted to thank you for that comment. I teach undergraduates in our community entrepreneurship program, and that's a co-working space. That's a nonprofit for nonprofits. That could be a really good project, like a semester-long project to think through. Yeah. All right.
This is sort of jumping off of Lindsay's question a little bit. You started the conversation by framing it in the context of third spaces, right? Mm-hmm. And often when we talk about third spaces and the lack of them in the United States, it's about the lack of a third space where there's no transaction necessary to be there. And when we talk about coffees, shops or diners as a replacement for the public third space, there's of course an economic barrier to entry to those spaces. Even if it's not huge, we have coffee at home, right? So I'm wondering if you all, as in the co-working context, can talk about, is there any relationship with your economic development, business development work in creating and drawing businesses to Vermont, urban or rural Vermont, and the availability of spaces and services for the public good absent a transaction, right? And you can, if there's, work you do at your own spaces that requires no transaction for entry, I'd love to hear about that. But also, more broadly, what do you think the connection is between business development and this sort of more strict economic development in revitalizing our towns and the availability of, people to spaces in those towns that they don't have to pay to enter if their town doesn't have a library or a public park or whatever?
There's a lot there to unpack. It's all right.
I should have workshopped it.
No, it's okay. So on the subject of access to third spaces, in our particular use case, we do have the Springfield Library in town, and youth organizations. And so we have spaces in town that offer those services, and we'll oftentimes partner with those to offer our programming through those locations, so that people can access without necessarily having to be a BRIC member. Our membership is $50 a month, but we do understand that is still a barrier for some individuals. As I mentioned earlier, rural co-working, it doesn't really, the numbers don't work. And in our case, it's a way to keep a custodial service, present in the space, provide some light refreshments, and to be able to hold some of our recurring community events, which are open to the public free of charge. We have a community breakfast every Wednesday where we do bagels, and just allow people to come in and have conversations. We'll usually bring in a subject matter expert from around town who's doing a fun thing with technology, be it stop motion animation for educators, or building telescopes, or running a tech business. And we open our doors to anybody who wants to attend those. All of our workshops and programming are free of charge, actuators free of charge. We get sponsorship dollars or find grants to cover those costs. And to date, all of our STEAM summer camps are also free of charge. So we try to maintain as low a barrier of entry as we can, especially considering the economic demographics of Springfield and the surrounding region. It's not always possible, though, for spaces, especially if you are not living off of philanthropic funding.
I think one of the opportunities, and there are also a lot of people in this room with a lot more experience in this industry than I have, and so I'm sure I would actually welcome others chiming in. Dave, I'm kind of looking at you, but I think that one of the opportunities within the Leahy Consortium is for us to actually think more deeply about how we are collectively energizing a conversation around state support for co-working spaces throughout the community, and we're fortunate to have Eric Munson paired with us this summer, and for the duration of our work with Leahy, which is a year-long project, but he is guiding a basket of interns through an experience with each of us in individual research projects and then collective research under his guidance, which I'm optimistic will form the foundation of ongoing data collection for use TBD, but maybe to develop some advocacy opportunities for increased state funding. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing is that we've been thinking a lot very recently about the way we activate our spaces in Hula and how we can make our space activation more accessible to the public. And so we do have a couple of programs that are free and open to the public running right now, including a couple of lunch and learns that happen on, I see Brian in the back, on the 4th Thursday of the month. Women at Hula gather regular, I'm going to swap them. Okay, first Thursday of the month and fourth, if you just scan the newsletter, it'll be right there. But anyway, no, just for that exact reason, right, is like we're in a densely populated area, and there are lots of folks without access to the space otherwise, or who live a mile down the street and have never set foot in the place, which is heartbreaking to me. It's such an opportunity to invite people in again and like welcome that participation and engagement. So a couple of lunch and learn programs and twice monthly networking sessions. That is definitely on the second and fourth Thursday of the month from 4:30 to 6:30. Those are open to the public, and we welcome everyone to attend. The idea behind that is to just create a bit of structure and space specifically for networking. And what's really exciting about that is the number of students who are showing up for those conversations. Again, it's pretty informal, so I shouldn't say conversation, but we really see an opportunity for us to support overall state goals around talent retention and recruitment and all kinds of other things that can help address some of the challenges that you all work hard on every day and that you've all raised in different rooms throughout the day. So excited about that work.
Do we have time for one more?
One quick.
All right, quickly asked and quickly answered. Here we go.
Okay, quickly asked is, and thank you for the great introduction. My name is Eric Munson. Please talk to me because I'm the faculty member that Lucia just mentioned. And one of the things that I learned with the students this past Friday, because we were talking about one of the goals of the project is how can we develop a network of like a pass you can take from Brick to Hula to due north and cross the state as an entrepreneur. And building on the question of social entrepreneurs, I'm thinking, are there other spaces we could be activating, such as libraries, museums, social clubs like the Rotary or the Grange, churches who already have these networks in place, already have ways of moving through their systems. How could we loop into them as well and learn from them?
I'll be very brief because I think we have like 20 seconds remaining. One of the things I'm really mindful of, especially being newer to this industry, is observing what my peers and colleagues are doing and what their superpowers are and not trying to replicate that. And so for us, what that looks like at Hula is those types of partnerships. And again, back to space activation, it's like, how are we hosting our partners and inviting them in to access our space to host their programming and subsidize that access with intention to make the content more accessible, but also not step into the space of producing content that others are already doing a really beautiful job at.
And then just two things to kind of wrap that up. The Vermont Pass existed when I first started with Brick in 2019, which was just that. It was a kind of reciprocity agreement between spaces. You need somebody to own it and update it and keep it alive, which is tough when you're short on capacity. The second thing is, I believe it's Kettle, which is a program out of, or a business out of New York City, I think, that was co-opting restaurants during off-peak hours while they were doing prep work and turning them into co-working spaces. So some really interesting things have been tried as far as activating other spaces.
I heard Vail, people is really popular with what they've been doing with their ski passes here. I'm just kidding. People don't like that. But maybe the business model works. All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much to our two wonderful panelists and for y'all for great questions. Thank you.